Amanda Hale blended into the line of passengers streaming toward gate C-27 as if she had trained her whole life to be invisible. Maybe she had. She kept her baseball cap pulled low, her dark hair tucked into a neat braid, and her shoulders slightly hunched in a way that discouraged conversation. Airports were loud, bright, and full of people desperate to be somewhere else. She fit right in. Flight 672 to Denver wasn't boarding yet, but the crowd had already gathered like a restless tide. Business travelers checking watches, families juggling children, couples taking selfies, college students tapping away on laptops. People with normal lives, normal plans, normal futures. Amanda had none of that. She carried a single backpack, half empty, more out of habit than need. The only thing in it that truly mattered fit inside a thin, sealed envelope she hadn't opened in 7 years. Her boots were scuffed, her jacket was plain, her eyes hidden under the brim of her cap held storms. The boarding announcement crackled through the speakers, broken and tinny, stirring the crowd. Amanda stepped forward with the rest, her movements calm and unremarkable. She avoided eye contact with the gate agent, scanning her boarding pass with the ease of someone who traveled often but cared very little about where she was going. Inside the jet bridge, the hum of the aircraft grew louder. She'd always hated that sound. It was too familiar, too much like another life she had left behind in flames, metal, and secrecy. When she stepped onto the plane, the flight attendant gave her a practiced smile. "Welcome aboard." Amanda nodded politely but said nothing. She walked down the narrow aisle, passing rows of passengers who were still arranging their bags, swapping seats, settling into cramped spaces. She chose her preferred spot, row 22, window seat, not for the view, for the wall. Walls were comforting. Walls couldn't look at you and pull memories out of your head. She sat buckled in and exhaled slowly. To everyone around her, she was just another quiet woman on a routine domestic flight. A nobody, a shadow. And that was exactly how she wanted it. The aircraft filled quickly. A mother with a cranky toddler. A man in a business suit arguing on the phone. A teenage girl listening to music loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. A retired couple trying to figure out the seatbelt buckle as if it were a weapon system. Normal life, ordinary chaos. Amanda watched it all silently, but her mind wasn't here. It was 30,000 feet above Nevada, 7 years earlier, in an F-22 cockpit filled with smoke and alarms, her wingman's voice screaming in her ear. She squeezed her eyes shut. Not now, not here. A soft thump startled her. A little boy across the aisle had launched a toy plane into the air and was making engine noises with impressive enthusiasm. "VRRRRRRRRRM, I'm a fighter jet," he shouted. Amanda's fingers twitched. His mother apologized. "Sorry, he loves airplanes." Amanda forced a small smile. "It's okay." She turned back to the window, staring at the tarmac, forcing her breath to slow. She wasn't a pilot anymore. She wasn't military. She wasn't anything. This flight was just a flight, 85 minutes in the air, nothing more. The engines rumbled to life, and the plane began to push back from the gate. Amanda's heartbeat quickened, not from fear, but from instinct. The hum of turbines, the vibration under her seat, the subtle shift of weight as the aircraft turned, her body remembered everything even when her mind begged it not to. Takeoff came smoothly. The scenery blurred past, the runway streaking in long shadows as the plane lifted into the evening sky. Amanda swallowed, her throat tight. She pressed her forehead to the cool window and waited for the anxiety to fade. It didn't. It never did. It simply settled into the hollow place inside her. At cruising altitude, the seatbelt light turned off. People relaxed. A flight attendant pushed a beverage cart down the aisle, offering drinks with the cheerful confidence of someone who believed everything would go as planned. Amanda accepted water, murmured a quiet thanks, and took a small sip. She rarely ate or drank much on flights. Old habits from combat missions lingered. 39 minutes passed uneventfully. Then the world shifted. It happened so suddenly that the passengers barely had time to react. A violent jolt, sharp, metallic, ripped through the plane. The overhead bins rattled. A few people yelped. The lights flickered. The toddler screamed. A businessman cursed. The beverage cart slammed into a seat. Amanda's eyes snapped open. She felt the vibration change. Something wasn't right. Something wasn't responding the way it should. She sensed it in the tilt of the aircraft, the uneven tremor under her feet, the almost imperceptible struggle in the engine's pitch. This wasn't turbulence. This was failure. The intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen," came the captain's strained voice, "we're experiencing a minor technical issue. Please remain seated." Minor? No, Amanda knew that tone. She used that tone. Another jolt hit harder. The plane dipped left before correcting clumsily. Flight attendants exchanged uneasy looks. Passengers whispered. Amanda unbuckled her seatbelt. Not out of panic, out of certainty. The captain's voice returned, tighter this time. "If there is a qualified pilot on board, please." He didn't finish. The cockpit door swung open. A flight attendant emerged, pale and shaking. She scanned the cabin like someone searching for a miracle. Her eyes landed on Amanda. Not because she looked like a pilot, because she was the only person standing calmly while everyone else panicked. "Ma'am, do you know anything about aircraft?" Amanda hesitated. 7 years of silence. 7 years of pretending she wasn't who she used to be. 7 years of running. She began, but the aircraft lurched again, sending a suitcase tumbling down the aisle. The flight attendant grabbed the headrest to steady herself. "The captain is asking for help. He said he needs someone with experience." Experience. The word stabbed deeper than she expected. Amanda exhaled through her nose once, steady and controlled. Then she removed her hat, revealing sharp eyes filled with something the attendant didn't understand, but recognized as authority. "What's happening in the cockpit?" Amanda asked. "They said hydraulic pressure is dropping. The controls aren't responding right." Amanda closed her eyes for a heartbeat. Hydraulics failing. Of all the systems to lose. She stood, slowly, reluctantly. Every step toward the front of the aircraft felt like stepping back into a life she had sworn to bury. Passengers stared as she moved past them, some hopeful, some fearful, some simply confused. The mother with the toddler reached out and touched Amanda's sleeve. "Please," she whispered, "help us." Amanda swallowed hard. When she reached the cockpit door, the captain's shadow was trembling. He pulled the door wider, eyes widening when he saw her. He began, voice cracking. "Were you military?" Her jaw flexed, once. "Do you have flight experience?" Her gaze drifted to the flickering warning lights behind him. "More than I ever wanted," she said quietly. The captain's face creased with desperation. "We need help." Amanda stepped into the cockpit, feeling her past slam into her like a cold wave. She didn't want to do this. She never wanted to do this again. But 183 lives were on the line. And Amanda Hale had never been the kind of person who walked away from people who needed her. Not then. Not now. She took a slow breath, stared at the failing instruments, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. And as she placed her hand on the captain's shoulder, she knew there was no turning back now. The cockpit of Flight 672 was smaller than Amanda remembered airline cockpits being. Or maybe it only felt smaller because the air was thick with tension, almost suffocating. A red glow from warning lights splashed across the controls. Alarms blinked, some steady, some intermittent, all sending the same message. Something critical is failing. The captain's hands trembled as he pointed toward the main display. Hydraulic System B is losing pressure fast. System A is barely holding. Controls are sluggish. Sometimes they're not responding at all. Amanda slid into the jump seat, her eyes scanning every instrument with a calmness that didn't match the pounding in her chest. She didn't touch anything yet, didn't breathe too loudly. She knew that even the smallest movement could shatter the fragile control the captain was trying to maintain. "When did the pressure begin dropping?" she asked. "8 minutes ago," the first officer replied, voice thin. He was younger, maybe early 30s, sweat beading at his hairline. "Then we took a hit of turbulence. At least we thought it was turbulence, and the stabilizer started fighting the commands." Amanda's jaw tightened. It wasn't turbulence. Both men looked at her. "That jolt you felt," she explained. "It was the moment the system started losing authority. A slip, a misalignment, something binding or failing deeper than the pressure lines. The drop was a symptom, not the cause." She shouldn't have known that, shouldn't have been so certain. But old instincts didn't ask permission. The captain seemed to study her more closely now. "You said you were military." Amanda hesitated. She could lie, she could deflect, but their eyes were pleading for a truth she didn't want to speak aloud. She sighed. "F-22 pilot, Air National Guard, 7 years ago." The first officer blinked hard. "Your weight, you flew Raptors." Amanda nodded once. The captain breathed out in a mixture of relief and disbelief. "Then you understand what's happening." "I understand more than I want to," she admitted quietly. Her chest constricted as memories hit her. Crackling radio static, warnings screaming in her helmet, fire reflecting off her visor, her wingman's panicked voice fading into silence. She shoved the memory away. "Focus." Flight 672 wasn't a fighter jet. It was heavier, slower, less agile. But hydraulic failure was hydraulic failure. No aircraft, from commercial jets to the world's most advanced fighters, could survive long without stable control surfaces. Amanda leaned closer to the display. "You still have partial command, but not enough for a clean landing, and we're too far from Denver. What's your nearest alternate?" "Colorado Springs," the captain replied. "But storm cells are covering the approach path. Radar shows severe winds and low visibility." "Perfect," Amanda muttered. She rubbed her forehead. "What about Albuquerque?" "Fuel too tight to divert that far." Amanda exhaled, feeling the walls close in. Every option was bad. Some were just less fatal than others. The aircraft shuddered again. The captain tightened his grip on the yoke. "We need a plan," the first officer said, desperation creeping into his voice. "We do," Amanda agreed, "but you're not going to like it." She turned toward the captain fully now, her voice steady but grim. "We need to regain airflow authority over the tail. The only way to do that at this stage is a controlled aerodynamic drop." The captain blinked. "A what?" "A drop," she repeated. "A nose-down descent to increase relative wind force over the control surfaces. It'll temporarily give you more bite on the stabilizers." "That's insane," the first officer whispered. "No," Amanda said calmly, "it's physics." The captain swallowed hard. "How much altitude would we lose?" 4,000 feet, maybe more." The cockpit fell silent. Even the alarm seemed quieter. "That's a steep dive for a damaged aircraft," the captain said. "Passengers will scream," Amanda finished. "Some will panic, but it's either that or lose control entirely, and you know that." The plane drifted left again, and the captain corrected slowly, too slowly. Amanda continued. "Right now, you're flying on borrowed time. If we don't get those stabilizers responding again, you're going to enter an unrecoverable pitch oscillation." The first officer whispered, "Dutch roll." "Exactly," Amanda said. "But worse, because you won't have hydraulic authority to counter it." The captain's eyes darted between the displays, then back to Amanda. "They'll ground me for authorizing a maneuver like that, probably fire me." Amanda stared him straight in the eyes. They'll bury all of us if you don't. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. The captain finally nodded, jaw stiff. Okay, what altitude? Amanda studied the terrain map one more time. Start at 31,000, drop to 27. That should give us enough force to reset stabilizer flow. The first officer's hands trembled over the autopilot panel. This is going to be rough. Do it manually, Amanda said. Autopilot will fight you. We need deliberate, controlled input. The captain inhaled deeply, wiped his palms on his uniform, and rested his hands on the yoke. On your mark, he said. Amanda braced herself. She hadn't done this kind of maneuver since. No, don't think about it. Ready, she said softly. The captain disabled autopilot with a decisive click. The plane dipped instantly. Passengers screamed behind the cockpit door. Loose items slid forward. The beverage cart toppled loudly in the aisle. Alarms chimed. Sensors protested. The aircraft groaned as though it hated everything they were doing to it. Ease it, Amanda called out. Give me a steady 5-degree pitch, no more. The captain gritted his teeth, fighting the sluggish controls. It's resisting. It will, Amanda said. Stay with it. Altitude dropped. 30,800. 30500, 29,900. The descent was fast, too fast for passenger comfort, but controlled enough to remain stable, a line between survival and catastrophe. Then, a metallic crack reverberated beneath them. The whole aircraft jerked violently to the right. The cockpit lights flickered. What the hell was that? The first officer cried. Amanda clenched the armrest. Keep the nose down, don't correct yet. He hesitated. The instinct of every pilot screamed fix the deviation, but Amanda's authority and her calm under fire held him steady. Another jolt slammed through the fuselage. The entire cockpit shook. 28,000, the captain shouted, stabilizing, trying. Amanda focused on the primary control metrics. Come on. Come on. The stabilizer readings flickered, then twitched. Response, the first officer yelled. They're responding. But Amanda saw it before they did. The graph lines were still unstable. They had only a few seconds before the system either recovered or completely died. Hold your descent, she ordered, not a foot lower. The captain steadied the pitch. Sweat ran down his temple. Everyone waited. 5 seconds. 10. 15. The stabilizer line shot upward smoothly. Amanda exhaled sharply. We've got partial authority back, she said. We're not safe, but we're flying again. The captain sagged in his seat. God, we actually did it. Amanda allowed herself one breath of relief. Just one. Because out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a new radar signature blinking on the tactical overlay. 2 signatures. Vast. Approaching. She frowned. Is that military? The captain squinted. Looks like F-22s. The first officer blinked. What would Raptors want with us? Amanda's stomach dropped. Raptor signatures, that close, that fast. Not escort. Intercept. She knew exactly what those jets were doing. And she knew exactly which squadron flew that pattern. Her pulse surged. No, no, no. Not them. The past she buried 7 years ago was climbing back into the sky. And it was coming straight for her. Captain, she whispered, eyes fixed on the radar, we have another problem. Cockpit was still trembling slightly from the descent, but Amanda barely noticed the residual shakes. Her attention was locked on the tactical radar display. The 2 military signatures approached with unmistakable precision, fast, clean, unwavering. The first officer stared. Why would F-22s intercept a commercial flight? Amanda didn't respond. Her throat had gone dry. Raptors never moved this way. unless one of three things was happening. 1. A national security threat. 2. A transponder failure. 3. A pilot they thought was dead suddenly appeared on their radar. And Amanda knew which one applied. The captain forced a thin laugh. Maybe they're just checking up on us, making sure we're stable after the emergency. Amanda shook her head slowly. Raptors do check up. They investigate. The first officer's eyebrows knitted together. Investigate what? Amanda didn't answer. Couldn't answer. The memories shoved their way into her chest. Her last day flying, the explosion, the unbearable silence over the radio, the blinding smoke, waking up in the hospital to Air Force investigators telling her she would never fly again. And then the final blow. Your file has been sealed. This incident never happened. The public never learned her name. Her wingman's death was blamed on mechanical failure. Her survival was classified. And Amanda Hale disappeared into civilian life because the truth, as they told her, would complicate national security. It had taken her years to even reconnect with herself. Now 2 Raptors from her old squadron were racing toward Flight 672. Like ghosts, she thought she escaped. The captain's voice broke through her thoughts. Amanda, what do they want? She inhaled sharply. Depends how much they recognize. The first officer looked confused. Recognize what? Her eyes met theirs. Me. Both pilots stared. The captain blinked. You think the Raptors are here because of you? Amanda didn't get the chance to answer. A harsh metallic thunk vibrated through the fuselage, followed by a low grinding sound that made every muscle in Amanda's body seize. The captain's hand shot to the throttle. What was that? Amanda listened. Another grinding moan, deep in the aircraft's belly. Her heartbeat thudded. That came from the left hydraulic manifold, she said. Something's binding again. As if on cue, the plane drifted slightly left. The captain corrected, but the yoke resisted. Stabilizer authority dropping again, the first officer said. It's worse this time. Amanda gripped the armrest. She had known the aerodynamic drop would only buy them time, but not how much. Now it was clear. Not enough. The turbulence outside strengthened, shaking the aircraft like angry hands. The cabin behind them erupted into fearful murmurs, cries, shouts. Amanda shut her eyes for a moment, grounding herself. Different aircraft. Different emergency. Same terrifying helplessness. She forced herself back into focus. Captain, she said firmly, we need another drop. He whipped around. Another, we barely pulled out of the first one. If we don't regain airflow, the plane will become uncontrollable. The stabilizers are losing authority faster than before. The first officer looked pale. A second drop could tear the manifold completely. Or it could stabilize it temporarily, Amanda countered, at least long enough to find somewhere to land. The captain stared at her. Somewhere, we were aiming for Colorado Springs. Amanda pointed at the radar. Not anymore, look. Storm fronts bloomed across the radar screen, lighting up with violent bands of red and yellow. The weather system was worsening by the minute. Colorado Springs is closing their runways to inbound traffic because of wind shear warnings, Amanda said grimly. We can't land there. The captain swore under his breath. Unbelievable. We need an emergency strip, Amanda continued. Military, long, open, no inbound traffic. The first officer leaned closer to the map. Closest is, what? Holloman Air Force Base. That's too far south. Buckley, Amanda said quietly. Both pilots turned to her. You mean Buckley Space Force Base, the captain said. We're not cleared to land there. If 2 Raptors are escorting us, Amanda said, your clearance is irrelevant. The captain stared at her with unease. Why Buckley? Because, she whispered, that's where I was stationed. Silence hung thick in the air. She continued, "It's open terrain, long runway, and if the Raptors are contacting their tower, we might get priority." The first officer looked between them. "So, another drop." Amanda nodded. "Last one we can risk." The captain gripped the yoke. "On my mark." Amanda closed her eyes and exhaled. "This time you follow my timing exactly. No deviations." He nodded. She counted down. 3, 2, 1 now. The captain tipped the nose down. The plane plunged. Screams erupted behind them. The fuselage groaned under the sudden stress. Loose items flew forward, tumbling down the aisle. A baby cried. Someone prayed loudly. Another passenger shouted, "We're going down." The cockpit vibrated violently. Warning alarms chorused in a shrill symphony. "Angle steep," the first officer shouted. "Hold it," Amanda yelled. "Don't pull up yet." Altitude dropped. 292,002,8900, 27,500. The plane trembled harder than before. Then, a metallic explosion cracked beneath the floor. The cockpit lights flickered. "Stabilizer reads 0 authority," the first officer shouted frantically. "We lost it completely." "No, we didn't," Amanda snapped. "It's frozen, keep descending." The captain's knuckles were white. 27,000, the first officer cried. "Level it," Amanda ordered. The captain pulled the yoke slowly, deliberately. The nose lifted, the aircraft shuddering violently as though unsure whether to obey. And then, the stabilizer readings surged. The first officer gasped. Authority restored, partial but better than before. Amanda exhaled shakily. The captain slumped back. "I can feel the controls again, thank God." But before Amanda could feel even a flicker of relief, a shadow flashed across the cockpit windows. Then another. 2 F-22 Raptors swept past the nose of Flight 672, their wings slicing through the air like steel scythes. The captain stared. "Well, they definitely see us." Amanda's heart pounded. They weren't just flying by. They were positioning. One on each side. Flanking. Standard military inspection formation. The comm panel crackled sharply. A cold voice cut through the static. "Unidentified aircraft, respond. State your flight condition and pilot in command." The captain tried to respond, but Amanda grabbed the radio first. Her voice was steady. "This is Flight 672. We're experiencing hydraulic failure, attempting emergency landing." There was a long pause. Too long. Then a voice she hadn't heard in 7 years, rough, familiar, older, came through. "Angel 9, is that you?" Amanda froze. Her heart stopped. Her world narrowed to a single word. Angel 9. Her old call sign. The one she buried. The one she mourned. The one she swore nobody would ever say again. The captain stared at her, eyes wide. The first officer's jaw dropped. "Angel 9, the captain whispered, "that's you." Amanda swallowed hard. Before she could answer. Before she could explain. Before she could breathe. A blast like a thunderclap shook the right side of the aircraft. The captain screamed, "Engine failure, right engine is gone." Smoke shot past the cockpit window as the engine disintegrated into sparks and fire. Alarm shrieked. The plane lurched downward again. The Raptors split formation, one trailing close behind, the other rising to cover from above. And Amanda's past, her real past, came roaring back into the sky. This wasn't just an emergency anymore. This was the beginning of everything she thought she escaped. The right engine's explosion ripped through the fuselage, shaking Flight 672 violently. Warning lights flashed crimson across the cockpit as alarms screamed like banshees. Smoke seeped faintly through the ventilation system. The passengers behind Amanda were screaming now. some banging on their seatbacks, some crying out in terror. The cabin had become a living nightmare suspended 30,000 feet above the ground. Amanda gritted her teeth and forced herself to breathe. Panic didn't help. It never helped. She could hear the soft groans of the fuselage bending against stress, and the sudden tilt of the aircraft made her stomach flip. Her old instincts, the ones she had buried under 7 years of civilian life, surfaced instantly, sharp as a razor. The first officer was pale, eyes wide, hands trembling over the yoke. "We're losing lift on the right wing," he shouted. "The engine's gone. It's completely gone." Amanda leaned forward, scanning the instruments. Hydraulic pressure was fluctuating dangerously, and the airflow over the right stabilizer was erratic. "We're not done yet," she muttered. "We're still alive, but we need immediate control correction. Partial input only, don't overcompensate." The captain's voice shook. "Partial input, we're plummeting here." Amanda's fingers danced over the controls with practiced precision. She could feel the aircraft's heartbeat beneath her hands, every vibration, every tremor, every reluctant response. The plane shuddered violently as if it were a living creature resisting her commands. She closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, centering herself. She could do this. She had to do this. Outside, the sky was a chaotic swirl of storm clouds, lit intermittently by flashes of lightning. Rain spattered the windows, tiny bullets hammering against the fuselage. The turbulence was relentless, testing the limits of both human and machine. Passengers screamed louder. One mother was clutching her child to her chest, tears streaming down her face. An elderly man was whispering prayers over and over, his knuckles white as he gripped the armrests. Amanda barely noticed. Her entire focus was on the aircraft, the dying right engine, the faltering stabilizer, the pitch, the yaw, the speed. Every decision she made was a battle of life and death. Then came the radar signal, the F-22 Raptors. They had moved into a protective formation around Flight 672, their sleek black forms cutting through the storm like predators. One Raptor moved to the plane's right, covering the disabled engine, the other to the left, almost at eye level with Amanda. They weren't just escorting. They were monitoring, assessing, judging. The intercom crackled, and a voice she hadn't heard in years penetrated the cabin. "Angel 9, do you copy?" Amanda froze, hand hovering over the yoke. Her past had just caught up with her, announcing itself in the deadliest possible way. Her call sign, once a source of pride, now a secret she thought was buried, echoed across the sky. The captain glanced at her, disbelief written across his face. "Angel 9, that's you." "Yes," Amanda whispered. Her voice was tight, laced with tension. She didn't explain. There was no time. She couldn't explain. The aircraft was failing beneath them, the storm raging around them, and the Raptors. The Raptors were waiting for her to make the right move. Another violent jolt slammed through the aircraft. The fuselage twisted, and Amanda felt the subtle vibrations that meant another structural failure might be imminent. The right wing dipped dangerously. The plane groaned in protest. The cabin erupted in screams as passengers were thrown against their harnesses. "Brace for sudden altitude drop," Amanda shouted over the alarms. The captain's knuckles turned white as he gripped the yoke. "We can't hold her. We're falling." "Yes, we can," Amanda snapped. "But you have to trust me. Partial input, slow, deliberate, don't fight it." Her hands moved like lightning over the controls, coaxing the aircraft back from the brink. Sweat streamed down her forehead. The smell of burnt circuitry from the damaged engine filled the cockpit. Every second was a battle against gravity, momentum, and the storm. Outside, the Raptors mirrored their moves, one sliding slightly ahead of the right wing, the other climbing above to monitor. They were silent enforcers, reminding Amanda that one wrong move could be catastrophic. "Hydraulic pressure stabilizing at 40%, the first officer reported, voice trembling. "But we're still losing lift." Amanda's mind raced. They had partial control, but the right wing's aerodynamic integrity was compromised. Any aggressive maneuver could send the plane into an unrecoverable roll. The only solution, a controlled descent to regain airflow, just as she had done once before in her F-22. But this was different. Heavier aircraft, more lives, unpredictable turbulence. She turned to the captain. "We need to drop, another controlled drop, 4,000 feet, I'll guide you." He swallowed hard, hesitation clear in his eyes. Another drop, after what we just survived. Amanda's gaze was unyielding. "It's the only way. We either do this or we lose control entirely. Everyone on board dies if we hesitate." The captain nodded slowly. "On your mark." Amanda exhaled, feeling her pulse hammer in her temples. She could sense the weight of 183 lives pressing down on her shoulders. She counted down in her mind. 3, 2, 1. "Now," she commanded. The nose of the plane tipped down, and the aircraft plunged. Passengers screamed in terror as their stomachs dropped. Loose items tumbled, luggage shifted, and the overhead compartments rattled violently. The plane shuddered under the sudden stress, alarms screaming in a deafening symphony. Amanda's hands guided the aircraft with precision, every movement calculated to restore control without exceeding structural limits. Altitude dropped quickly. 28500 to 8000, 27,400. The fuselage groaned again as the strain threatened to tear the weakened right wing. Amanda's jaw was tight. Hold it," she shouted. The Raptors moved in close, one on each side, almost like guardian angels, perfectly synchronized to ensure Flight 672 didn't roll into disaster. Their presence gave Amanda a strange sense of reassurance. Even in the chaos, she wasn't alone. Suddenly, another metallic thud reverberated through the cabin, louder than before. Something had shifted inside the fuselage, another structural component failing under stress. The captain's voice broke through the alarms. "It's happening again, stabilizers." Amanda didn't flinch. "Focus on flying, partial input only, don't overcorrect." The aircraft lurched violently. The cabin was a cacophony of screams and fear. Amanda's eyes were locked on the instruments, her mind running calculations faster than anyone could follow. Every second was critical. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the stabilizer readings began to respond. Partial authority returned. Flight 672 shuddered but leveled. The passengers' screams became gasps. The first officer's voice trembled with relief. We're holding, partial control." Amanda didn't allow herself to relax. Not yet. She could feel the fragility of the situation. One wrong move, one gust of wind, and it could all end. And then through the comm panel, that voice again. "Angel 9, do you copy?" Amanda's heart froze. Her secret, her past, it had found her. And now, with the aircraft still trembling and 183 lives at stake, she had no choice but to face it. The Raptors weren't just escorting them. They were watching her, waiting to see if the pilot they thought was dead could save everyone on board. She swallowed hard. The storm, the failing aircraft, the screaming passengers, the approaching F-22s, it all came together into one terrifying reality. And Amanda Hale, Angel 9, braced herself. Because the sky was about to remind her why she had ever learned to fly. The voice over the radio echoed in Amanda's ears like a ghost she had long tried to bury. "Angel 9, do you copy?" Her heart pounded, every beat a drum of panic and disbelief. 7 years. 7 years of silence. 7 years pretending she didn't exist. And now, at 30,000 feet, with 183 terrified passengers depending on her and Flight 672 struggling to stay in the sky, her past had found her. Amanda swallowed hard. Her jaw felt tight. She glanced at the captain, whose eyes were wide with disbelief. That's you," he whispered. Yes, Amanda said, her voice barely audible over the alarms. She didn't elaborate. There wasn't time, and besides, some truths were too dangerous to speak aloud. The first officer's eyes flicked nervously between her and the radar. What does that mean? It means, she said slowly, that the people approaching us, they know me. They know exactly who I am. Outside the cockpit, the two F-22 Raptors adjusted their positions. One moved closer to the damaged right wing, mirroring its every tilt. The other climbed above, scanning for any additional abnormalities. They weren't escorting, they were observing, judging. Amanda knew that formation. She had flown it countless times, back when she was still part of the 121st Fighter Wing. And they weren't here to save her. The captain swallowed. Military, they're military. Amanda nodded. Not just any military, my old squadron. The first officer blinked. Your old squadron. Amanda's fingers flexed on the yoke. I was Angel 9, lead pilot for the Raptors you're seeing. I was supposed to be dead. The words hung in the cockpit like smoke. The captain went pale. You disappeared. Amanda didn't need to explain. They all understood in their own ways. The truth had been classified. She had been erased. And now, history had collided with the present, pulling her back into a life she thought she left behind. Why now? The first officer asked. Why would they respond now after all these years? Amanda didn't answer immediately. She could feel the plane faltering beneath them. The right engine was gone. Stabilizers were still only partially responsive, and every adjustment she made caused the fuselage to groan like a wounded animal. Suddenly, the aircraft shuddered violently. Metal screeched. Warning lights flashed red, and the smell of burning electronics filled the cockpit. Stabilizer authority dropping again, the first officer yelled. Amanda's pulse raced. Hold the yoke steady. Partial input only, don't overcorrect. The captain's face was pale and drawn. We're losing it. Yes, Amanda said grimly, but we can't afford panic. Focus. Follow my lead. Outside, the storm intensified. Rain hammered the windows like hail. Lightning slashed across the sky, illuminating the terrified faces of passengers. The cabin erupted into chaos, screams blending with prayers, shouts, and the mechanical alarms of a plane on the brink. Amanda's mind raced through calculations she hadn't had to make in years. The aircraft was heavier, slower than the Raptors she had flown, but physics remained the same. Aerodynamic force, gravity, thrust, drag, every equation was familiar, every instinct returning. She just had to stay alive long enough to use it. Then the voice came again, over the radio. Angel 9, your descent vector is critical. Correct immediately or you risk a full stall. Confirm emergency protocol. Amanda froze. The words were a lifeline, a threat, and a reminder of what she had once been. She was still Angel 9, still a pilot capable of life or death decisions in the blink of an eye, still someone who couldn't run from responsibility. Yes, she replied, steadying her voice. We're under control, partial systems failure, attempting emergency descent. The F-22s adjusted again, almost like guardians ensuring she didn't make a fatal mistake. Their presence was reassuring and terrifying all at once. These pilots, her peers, her former comrades, had known her best and judged her hardest. And now they were witnesses to a miracle. A civilian, a woman erased from records, guiding a crippled plane with 183 lives on board. Amanda's hands worked tirelessly on the yoke, every movement precise, every adjustment calculated. She felt the plane respond, slowly, unevenly, but enough to maintain control. Sweat poured down her face. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, loud and steady against the storm. Altitude dropping, the first officer called. Emergency descent in progress. Amanda nodded, eyes flicking to the instruments. Keep her steady. Don't fight the roll. Let the airflow do the work. Another violent jolt shook the aircraft. Sparks flew from a panel in the cockpit. Alarms screamed. The plane listed slightly to the right. Amanda's stomach twisted, but her focus never wavered. She knew exactly what to do, she just had to convince the plane to obey her. The captain's voice trembled. "I've never seen a maneuver like this. How are you doing this?" Amanda didn't answer. Not yet, not until the plane was safe. Her mind flicked back to her last day as Angel 9. The explosion in Nevada, the fire, the smoke. Her wingman's voice fading into static, the investigators, the cover-up, the official report that declared her unfit for flight. The years of hiding, living a civilian life, pretending the sky no longer called to her. And now here she was, back in the cockpit, with history catching up faster than any enemy she had ever faced. "Partial control stabilizing," the first officer reported, his voice barely audible over the alarms. Amanda exhaled sharply. "Good, we hold here for a moment, prepare for level correction." The captain nodded, gripping the yoke tightly. "Level correction, are we going to make it?" Amanda's eyes flicked to the radar. The Raptors were still in formation, monitoring every movement. She could feel their silent judgment. She could feel the weight of their expectations. And she could feel the weight of every passenger on board, every life depending on her. "Yes," she said quietly, "we're going to make it." Then the right engine groaned again, a harsh, metallic sound that set her teeth on edge. Another jolt shook the plane. The cabin erupted into screams once more. Amanda's stomach dropped as she realized the full magnitude of what they were facing. The aircraft was damaged, the storm was relentless, and the Raptors knew her. They knew she was alive, and now there was no turning back. Her voice was steady, commanding, and calm despite the chaos. "Brace yourselves. We're not done yet, but if we work together, we can survive this." The captain's hands trembled on the yoke, but he nodded. The first officer gripped his console, white-knuckled. Amanda Hale, Angel 9, took a deep breath. She was back in the sky, back in control, and back facing the past she had spent 7 years running from. And now there was no way out. Ending suspense, because before they could even attempt a landing, the left stabilizer gave a sudden, violent shudder, threatening to throw the plane into an unrecoverable spin, and the Raptors weren't just watching, they were ready to act. Amanda's heart pounded as the cockpit thrummed beneath her fingers. The left stabilizer had just shuddered violently, sending an alarming vibration through the controls. The plane dipped slightly, and her stomach lurched. Every passenger's life hung in the balance, and every second felt like a lifetime. Through the static of the comm panel, that voice came again, clearer, unmistakable. "Angel 9, is that you?" Her breath caught. It wasn't just any pilot. It was Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Raines, her former squadron commander, the man who had trained her, pushed her, and once saved her life in the Nevada desert during a classified exercise gone wrong. The voice was calm, controlled, but layered with disbelief, recognition, and a hint of awe. Amanda's throat went dry. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling only slightly. "It's me." The captain and first officer stared at her in disbelief. The first officer's jaw dropped. You were military, a fighter pilot." Amanda's eyes met theirs, hard and unwavering. "I was Angel 9. And I'm still capable of saving this plane." The Raptors, her old squadron, flanked Flight 672, their sleek black silhouettes slicing through the storm. One hovered close to the right wing, monitoring the disabled engine, while the other stayed above, scanning for turbulence and debris. Marcus Raines' voice crackled over the panel again. "Explain yourself, Angel 9. The world thought you were dead. How are you alive?" Amanda's mind raced. There wasn't time to recount 7 years of secrecy, the cover-up, the erased records, or the accident that had forced her out of the Air Force. Every word mattered. Every second mattered. "I don't have time," she said firmly. "Right now, we're trying to survive an emergency landing. I need you to monitor us, not interrogate me." Raines was silent for a moment. Then, "Understood, Angel 9, you're on my radar. I'll provide vectors for emergency landing. But I need a status report. How critical is the aircraft? Amanda scanned the instruments. Hydraulic pressure was fluctuating unpredictably. The right engine was destroyed. The stabilizers were weak, responding only partially to input. The storm was intensifying and turbulence threatened to flip the plane. Critical, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. Hydraulic failure on both systems. Right engine gone. Partial stabilizer control. We're descending to regain airflow over the wings, but the aircraft is at the limits of structural integrity. We can make it, but it's going to be tight. Rain's tone softened slightly, just enough for her to catch the faint trace of respect. Understood. I've got eyes on you. Don't push beyond the plane's structural limits. You're still Angel 9. I know you can do this, but be careful. Amanda's lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't understand fully. The Raptors could protect her from external threats, but the aircraft itself, 183 passengers and stormy skies were entirely on her. She swallowed hard and returned her focus to the yoke. The captain's voice quivered. We're losing lift again. Partial control isn't enough. Amanda's pulse raced. Hold steady, trust me. We've bought time and we're going to use it. Her eyes flicked to the left stabilizer readings. The shutter had eased slightly, but it wasn't stable. She needed another controlled drop, another daring maneuver that no commercial airline pilot would ever approve. The first officer paled. Another drop after everything we just went through. Amanda didn't hesitate. It's the only option. We'll regain airflow over the control surfaces. We have no choice. The captain exhaled sharply. Do we have time? Amanda's gaze locked on the altimeter. We have 30 seconds. Then the storm will make everything uncontrollable. She keyed the radio. Raptors, cover us. Ensure no collisions. We need full clearance for descent. The two jets responded instantly, adjusting formation to provide maximum clearance and monitoring. Marcus Rain's voice came again. Affirmative, covering you. Angel 9, you're cleared for controlled drop. Amanda nodded to herself. Okay, let's do this. The descent was sudden, violent, but precise. The passengers screamed as the plane dipped and loose luggage tumbled down the aisle. Every groan, every scream, every prayer reminded Amanda of what she was fighting for. She could feel the aircraft respond beneath her hands, the control surfaces struggling, then gradually regaining authority. Her focus was razor-sharp. The storm outside was relentless, lightning illuminating the interior, rain hammering the fuselage. But she worked with every ounce of her skill, coaxing the plane back into stability. The Raptors mirrored her movements, perfectly in sync, monitoring, assisting where possible. Marcus' voice broke through once more. You've got it, Angel 9. Keep her steady. Amanda exhaled through clenched teeth. We're not safe yet. We need to hold this descent and stabilize the aircraft fully before attempting any landing. The left stabilizer quivered again, sending another shudder through the fuselage. Amanda's stomach dropped, but she gritted her teeth and focused. Partial authority was better than none. She worked to maintain it, adjusting the yoke with minute-precise movements. The captain's voice trembled again. I don't know how you're doing this. Amanda didn't answer. There was no time, no room for explanations. Her life as Angel 9, the pilot who had faced death countless times, was now inseparable from the lives of these passengers. And then through the comm panel, Rain spoke again. This time his voice softened. You were never gone, Angel 9. We knew you had the skill, but nobody knew you'd come back like this. You're saving them, all of them. Amanda's chest tightened. She didn't allow herself to feel the emotion, not yet. Focus. Breathe. Fly. Every passenger on board was relying on her. Every calculation mattered. Every second counted. The plane shuddered again, the right engine's destruction sending vibrations up the fuselage. Sparks flickered from the panel, and the cabin lurched violently. Amanda's eyes didn't leave the instruments. She made minute corrections, keeping the aircraft from rolling, coaxing the weakened stabilizers to respond. The Raptors stayed in formation, one on each side, shadowing the plane like angels of steel. But Amanda knew the real responsibility was hers alone. "Partial control stabilizing," the first officer reported, voice trembling but relieved. "We're holding just barely." Amanda exhaled sharply. 1 step closer. 1 second closer. She could feel the aircraft respond to her commands, slowly, stubbornly, like a beast reluctantly obeying its master. "Good," she whispered. "We're going to make it." But the storm wasn't finished, the engine damage wasn't fixed, and the Raptor pilots, her old squadron, still had questions, judgments, and expectations. Amanda Hale, Angel 9, was back. And this time there was no running from the sky, from responsibility, or from the truth. Ending suspense. Just as she prepared for the final approach, a sudden alert flashed on the console. Both engines were dangerously close to overheating, and a nearby cloudbank threatened a microburst, a downward wind that could send the plane into an unrecoverable spin. She had seconds to react, and every wrong move would mean the death of everyone on board. Amanda's eyes were locked on the instruments. The fuselage trembled beneath her hands, a low, persistent groan reverberating through the cabin. Sparks from the right engine flickered ominously, the smell of burning metal filling the cockpit. Passengers behind her screamed, some clutching their harnesses, others gripping each other, eyes wide with terror. She forced herself to breathe, counting in her mind. Focus, airflow, stabilizers, control. The altimeter ticked down steadily. The storm outside was relentless, wind gusts pushing against the crippled aircraft like invisible fists. The Raptor pilots flanked the plane, their sleek silhouettes slicing through the turbulence, monitoring, shielding, and guiding. But Amanda knew the real responsibility rested solely on her shoulders. "Captain," she said, voice calm but firm, "we're approaching the critical threshold. The right engine is overheating. Any second now, we could lose it entirely. We have to start the final approach immediately." The captain nodded, sweat streaming down his face. "Understood, but the runway at Buckley, it's still miles away. Can we make it?" Amanda's jaw tightened. "We'll make it, but there's no room for error. Every maneuver, every adjustment precise. Partial input only, trust me." The first officer's hands shook as he gripped the throttle. "I've never seen anything like this. How are you doing this?" Amanda didn't answer. Words would only distract. Focus. Control. Breathe. Every calculation, every instinct, every past experience, every second she had spent as Angel 9 was converging into this moment. Outside, lightning tore across the sky, illuminating the terrified faces of passengers through the cabin windows. The plane lurched violently as a microburst hit, pushing the nose down. The fuselage groaned, metal protesting. "Hold her," Amanda shouted, adjusting the yoke with delicate precision. The plane shuddered violently but responded, just enough to stabilize. "Partial control restored," the first officer reported, voice barely audible over the alarms. Amanda exhaled sharply, 1 step closer, 1 second closer. Then another warning light flashed. The left stabilizer was weakening, responding intermittently. Another microburst hit, tossing the aircraft like a toy. Panic surged in the cabin, screams blending with prayers and curses. Amanda's heart pounded. She could feel the aircraft teetering on the edge of catastrophe. One wrong move could send it into an unrecoverable spin. One miscalculation, and everyone on board would die. "Raptors," she said over the radio, voice calm and commanding, "we're initiating final approach. Maintain formation and clear the airspace for emergency landing." There was a brief pause, then Marcus Rain's voice came steady and reassuring. "Copy, Angel 9, we're covering you. Buckley is clear. You have priority, proceed." Amanda nodded to herself. "Good, one last maneuver." The descent began. The plane's nose dipped slightly, engines groaning under strain. The stabilizers responded just enough to keep the aircraft from rolling. Every gust of wind, every tremor of metal, every scream from the cabin behind her was a reminder of the stakes. "Altitude?" Amanda asked the first officer. 15,000, he replied. "Good, hold her steady, we're almost there." Another violent shudder ran through the fuselage as the right engine emitted a final metallic scream. Sparks flew. Smoke curled into the cockpit. "Engine failure imminent," the first officer shouted. Amanda's fingers tightened on the controls. "We're not done yet, not now." "Captain, brace for asymmetric thrust. Apply gentle left rudder, steady pressure. Partial input only. Keep us aligned." The captain obeyed, knuckles white. The plane tilted slightly, responding to the damaged engine and turbulent winds. The cabin erupted into screams once more. Loose luggage tumbled. The mother with the child screamed. Prayers echoed in unison with the alarm sirens. Amanda focused, steady, calm, precise. Through the storm, she could see the runway lights of Buckley Space Force Base, glowing faintly through the clouds like a distant promise. Every second was a battle. Gravity, wind, damaged hydraulics, failing engines. Every calculation mattered. Every input mattered. "Altitude 12,000, the first officer called. "Level her," Amanda ordered. "We'll need a shallow glide to compensate for asymmetry. Keep her stable." The plane responded sluggishly. Another gust hit, twisting the fuselage. Amanda's hands were steady, her mind razor-sharp. She guided the crippled aircraft toward the runway, coaxing every ounce of life from the failing systems. 10,000, the first officer yelled. Amanda adjusted the yoke slightly, guiding the plane onto the final glide path. Sparks from the right engine flickered ominously. The landing gear extended with a mechanical groan, the hydraulics protesting. "Stabilizers holding at 60%, the first officer reported. "Good," Amanda whispered. "Just a little more, hold steady." Lightning flashed across the stormy sky, illuminating the runway in stark relief. Amanda's eyes locked on it. Every passenger, every life, every choice, every calculation, all converged on this final moment. The Raptors flanked the aircraft, one on each side, ensuring a clear path and monitoring for turbulence. Marcus Rain's voice came over the comms. "You've got this, Angel 9. We've got your 6. Focus." Amanda swallowed hard. "I can do this. I have to do this." The plane shuddered violently again as the right engine threatened to die completely. Smoke poured into the cockpit. The stabilizers flickered, but Amanda held. She adjusted the yoke with subtle precision, coaxing the aircraft onto the glide path. 5,000, 4,000, 3,000. The first officer counted, voice shaking. Amanda's pulse surged. The runway was close now, visible through the storm in the distance. The plane responded almost miraculously to her commands. 2,000, 1,000. She could hear the passengers' muffled cries, their prayers, their fear. Their lives were in her hands, every single one. Amanda exhaled sharply. She guided the plane toward the runway, maintaining partial control. The tires touched the wet tarmac with a violent thump. Sparks flew as the damaged undercarriage scraped the asphalt. The fuselage groaned, but the aircraft held. The plane skidded across the runway, tires screeching, sparks flying. Amanda's hands worked frantically, keeping it straight, coaxing the failing hydraulics to respond. And then, finally, Flight 672 slowed. Stopped. Silent, exhausted, battered, but alive. The cockpit was filled with the acrid smell of smoke, sweat, and adrenaline. Amanda's chest heaved. The captain and first officer stared at her, disbelief and awe etched into their faces. Through the comm panel, Marcus Rain's voice came, calm but with a trace of amazement. "Angel 9, you did it. Everyone's alive. You saved them all." Amanda swallowed, exhaustion and relief washing over her in waves. She didn't smile. Not yet. She simply nodded, her hands still gripping the yoke. Behind her, passengers slowly realized they were alive. Screams turned into sobs of relief. Tears streamed down faces. People hugged. Prayers were whispered. The nightmare was over, at least for now. But Amanda Hale, Angel 9, knew this wasn't the end. Her past had caught up. The Raptors were waiting, and the world now knew that Angel 9 was alive. Ending suspense. As emergency crews rushed onto the runway, Amanda stepped out of the cockpit, only to see Marcus Raines approaching with a look she hadn't seen in years, a mixture of awe, disbelief, and a warning that her past was about to pull her back in entirely. Amanda Hale's legs felt like lead as she stepped out of the cockpit. The tarmac was wet from the storm, rain dripping from the fuselage and pooling under the aircraft. Emergency crews swarmed around Flight 672, flashlights slicing through the night, their shouts lost in the wind. The passengers, shaken but alive, began filing out of the plane, wrapped in blankets, their faces pale, eyes wide with disbelief and relief. Every step Amanda took toward the waiting medical personnel and rescue crews was heavy, not just from exhaustion, but from the weight of everything she had carried for 7 years. Her past, her secret, the missions no one knew she survived, the lives she thought she had abandoned when she disappeared. Then through the chaos, a voice called her name. Angel 9. She froze. Marcus Raines emerged from the shadows of the emergency lights, his black flight jacket glistening with rain. His gaze was sharp, unwavering. Pride and disbelief mingled in his eyes, the same way it always had when he first trained her, pushed her, tested her. "You," he began, voice low, "you saved them, all of them. No one else could have done it." Amanda's chest heaved. She wanted to speak, to explain, to apologize for disappearing, for abandoning her old life, but the words caught in her throat. She had no time for regrets now. "You did exactly what I knew you could do," Marcus continued, stepping closer. "I've never seen anyone handle that kind of chaos and survive it, and now the whole squadron knows you're alive. They'll be talking about this for a long time." Amanda shook her head, exhaling slowly. "I never wanted them to know. I never wanted anyone to know I survived." Marcus smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Well, you're not exactly anonymous anymore. The Raptors confirmed it. You're back, Angel 9, whether you like it or not." The rain stung her skin, the adrenaline finally ebbing from her veins. She looked back at the plane, the wounded fuselage that had been the scene of terror only moments ago. Every passenger had survived. Every life she touched was safe. And for the first time in years, she felt a small measure of pride. "Come on," Marcus said, gesturing toward the emergency crews. "We need to get you checked out. You're soaked, exhausted, and I want a full debrief." Amanda followed silently, her boots splashing through puddles. She noticed the passengers being assisted off the runway, some sobbing, some hugging loved ones, others simply staring in disbelief at the plane that had almost become their tomb. One man approached her hesitantly, shaking. "Are you the one who flew the plane, saved us?" Amanda nodded, "Yes." He blinked, swallowing hard. I can't, thank you. I don't know how you did it, but thank you." She gave a small, tired nod. "It's my job, just glad everyone made it." Another passenger, a young woman clutching her child, stepped forward. Tears streaked her face. "I prayed for you," she whispered. "You saved my baby, my whole family, thank you." Amanda's throat tightened, but she forced herself to remain composed. "You don't have to thank me, just stay safe." As she walked toward the emergency vehicles, the roar of the Raptors' engines echoed overhead. The F-22s maintained formation above the runway, watching, silent, imposing. Their presence was a reminder of her past, a past she could no longer ignore. Marcus fell into step beside her. "They're going to want to debrief you. And the media, well, they're going to catch wind of this soon. Flight 672 didn't just survive a storm and engine failure, it survived you." Amanda's stomach tightened. She had avoided the spotlight for years. Her survival had been a secret. And now, with every camera and every reporter arriving to capture the miraculous rescue, her past identity as Angel 9 was about to be exposed. "They're not ready for this," she murmured. "They will be," Marcus said firmly. "Because what you did, what you accomplished, it deserves recognition. And more importantly, it proves that Angel 9 is still alive, and still the best pilot I've ever known." Amanda shook her head. "I didn't do it for recognition." "I know," Marcus replied, "but the world needs to know, and besides, you never really left the sky, did you?" Her gaze drifted upward. The storm had passed, leaving a dark, cloud-streaked sky, faint stars peeking through. She imagined herself in the cockpit, hands on the yoke, heart racing, every life on board dependent on her every decision. And she realized, with a mixture of fear and exhilaration, that the sky had never stopped calling her back. The emergency crews guided her toward a waiting vehicle. She glanced back at the plane one last time, the scars of the flight etched into its fuselage, the story of survival written in every dent and scorch mark. She felt a strange kinship with it, battered and worn yet still standing. Marcus leaned toward her. "Angel 9, you need to understand something. They're going to ask about your call sign, about your identity, and you can't hide it anymore. You have to own it." Amanda swallowed, a lump forming in her throat. For 7 years she had buried the name, erased it from her life. But now, after saving 183 lives, after facing storms, fire, and the ghosts of her past, she realized she didn't need to hide anymore. She took a deep breath, her voice steady and resolute. "Angel 9, it's me, and I guess I never really left." Marcus smiled, pride and relief in his eyes. "Good, because the world needs to know that Angel 9 isn't just alive, she's back." As she stepped into the vehicle, cameras and emergency personnel capturing every moment, Amanda allowed herself a small, private smile. She had faced death, storms, and secrecy, and she had won. The sky had called her back, and she had answered. Behind her, the 2 F-22 Raptors soared into the night, their engines a thunderous reminder of everything she had survived, and everything she still represented. Angel 9 was no longer a secret. She was a legend reborn, a pilot who had faced impossible odds and lived to tell the tale. And for the first time in years, Amanda Hale felt free. Ending suspense and emotional hook. As Flight 672 passengers were finally guided to safety, news helicopters hovered above the runway. Reporters clamored for information. And in the midst of the chaos, a single question echoed through the media, through social media, and through the nation. Who is Angel 9, and how did she save 183 lives? The story was far from over.